This video will walk you through how to integrate evidence into your writing and make it smooth. Let's start by looking at an example of some ways that people might put evidence in their writing. You'll notice highlighted in yellow is a quote that is being used to support the idea of the paragraph. Now, you'll notice that the quote is simply put there without anything to set it up. This is called a dropped quote. What that means is that sometimes the reader doesn't know exactly what's happening around this quote. It's hard for the reader to understand where this is coming from or what it might mean. A lot of times we start by adding a basic example of how we lead into this, where we might say, for example, the text states, a stinging slap on his jaw. But you'll notice, even though that adds a little bit more information and tries to make it flow smoothly in the writing, it still doesn't quite sound totally right. So let's look at how do we make it smooth? Because that's not smooth. So how do we make it smooth? Well, there's really just two things to think about. There are two keys to a good lead-in for your evidence. One is that you add the context, or what's going on around the quote. Two, you add the speaker, meaning who says this, to give the audience context. Let's look at what that might look like. So here is the example we just had. For example, the text states, a stinging slap on his jaw. Not smooth. How about this? For example, when Richard tries to go back into his house, the narrator says that Richard felt a stinging slap on his jaw. Notice how that sounds much more smooth, and we understand a little bit better where the quote's coming from. It has the context in orange there, and the speaker in blue. So we know what's going on and who's saying it. Here's how it sounds in a paragraph. We'll read the sentence before, the quote, and the sentence after. Her actions on the stairs as Richard tries to re-enter the house after getting beat up are startling. For example, when Richard tries to go back into his house, the narrator says that Richard felt a stinging slap on his jaw. In this moment, the author doesn't want us. Do you see how that flows nice and smoothly into your writing? Now, we could actually take this a step further. So that transition at the beginning says, for example, when Richard tries to go back into his house. How could we do something that isn't using a transition that sometimes is overused, and instead, can we find something that's a little bit smoother? So what if we did this? This is most surprising in the moment when Richard tries to go back into his house and the narrator says he felt a stinging slap on his jaw. Now, if we read this one in context, it says, her actions on the stairs as Richard tries to re-enter the house after getting beat up are startling. This is most surprising in the moment when Richard tries to go back into his house and the narrator says that Richard felt a stinging slap on his jaw. See how smooth that sounds? It's almost like that piece of evidence is actually a part of your paragraph, which is the goal. One final note, even if you have a really good lead-in, you have to make sure you have a citation. In green, down there on the bottom right, is what that means. It's simply a way of saying who you're taking this from and where in their work you took it. So you'll notice we have the author's last name and the page number. There's no other punctuation, no comma, no PG.2, just author's last name, page number. So again, this is what it could look like. And again, make sure go back and check your writing. Do you have a lead-in with the context, the speaker, and a citation?